The studio was unusually quiet that day. Dr. Phil sat in his chair, notes resting on his lap, eyes focused on the woman across from him. She looked composed at first glance, but anyone paying attention could see it. The tight grip on her hands, the shallow breaths, the pain sitting just beneath the surface. "This is Sarah," Dr. Phil said gently, turning toward the audience. "She lost her husband just 8 months ago." Sarah nodded slowly, her lips pressed together as if holding back 1,000 words. They had been married for 22 years. 22 years of shared routines, inside jokes, late-night talks, and silent understandings that didn't need words. She spoke about him softly. The way he made coffee every morning. How he always checked the locks twice before bed. How he kissed her forehead before leaving for work. He wasn't perfect, she said, her voice steady but fragile. But he loved deeply. The audience leaned in. Dr. Phil asked the question everyone was already thinking. How did he pass? Sarah took a long breath. It was sudden, she replied. A heart condition we didn't even know about. A ripple of sadness moved through the room. She explained how one ordinary morning turned into the worst day of her life. One moment they were talking about dinner plans. The next, she was standing in a hospital hallway, hearing words that didn't feel real. Dr. Phil lowered his voice. And the letter. Sarah's eyes finally filled with tears. He wrote it months before he died, she said. He told me not to read it unless something happened to him. The audience shifted uncomfortably. She reached into her bag and slowly pulled out a folded envelope. It was worn, creased at the edges, clearly held many times but never opened. Her hands trembled. I haven't read it, she whispered, not once. Dr. Phil swallowed hard. You're going to read it today, Sarah nodded. Yes. The room went completely silent. No coughs, no whispers, no movement. As Sarah held the letter against her chest, she looked up and said something that made everyone's heart drop. I don't know if I'm ready, but I think I need to be. What she was about to read would not only change her life, it would leave Dr. Phil struggling to hold back tears. Sarah sat still for a moment, the envelope resting in her lap like it weighed more than paper ever should. Dr. Phil didn't rush her. He had learned long ago that grief moves at its own pace. Tell us about him, Dr. Phil said gently. Who was he when no one else was watching? Sarah smiled through tears. He was steady, she said. Not the loud kind of love, the kind that shows up. She described how they met in their early 20s, two ordinary people with ordinary dreams. He worked long hours, came home tired, but never empty-handed. Sometimes it was flowers. Sometimes it was nothing more than a bad joke and a warm hug. He believed love was action, Sarah said. Not words. The audience nodded, many already wiping their eyes. She talked about the difficult years too. Money problems, miscarriages, long nights where fear sat heavier than hope. Through all of it, her husband stayed calm, grounding her when she felt like everything might fall apart. Dr. Phil leaned forward. Did he ever talk about fear, he asked, about what worried him most? Sarah hesitated. He didn't talk about himself much, she said. But he worried about me being alone. That sentence landed hard. She explained how he'd started writing letters during a period when he wasn't feeling well. Nothing dramatic, just fatigue, shortness of breath. Doctors told them it was stress. Life went on. He said it was just something practical, Sarah said, like a will, but emotional. She laughed softly, then stopped herself. I didn't realize how serious it was. Dr. Phil nodded slowly. That's something a lot of people do, he said. They protect the people they love by staying silent. Sarah looked down at the envelope again. This letter, it scares me, she admitted, because I know whatever is inside, it's the last time he ever spoke to me. The studio felt heavy now. Dr. Phil gave the audience a moment to breathe before turning back to Sarah. There's something important happening here, he said. This isn't just about loss. This is about connection that didn't end. Sarah's eyes filled again. Before continuing, Dr. Phil turned slightly toward the camera. If you're watching this right now, let us know in the comments. What country or city are you watching from? You're not alone in this moment. He turned back to Sarah. Did you ever ask him why he wrote it? Dr. Phil asked. Yes, she said. He told me. Because I love you enough to prepare for the day I can't protect you anymore. A soft wave of emotion swept through the audience. Sarah described the day she found him. How quiet the house was, how time seemed to slow. She remembered noticing small details, his shoes by the door, his phone on the table, the half-finished note in his handwriting. What was the hardest part after? Dr. Phil asked quietly. The silence, Sarah replied immediately. The absence of his voice. She explained how grief isn't loud all the time. Sometimes it's the way you still reach for someone who isn't there, or set 2 cups out of habit. Dr. Phil closed his eyes briefly. That's how love leaves fingerprints, he said. Even when the person is gone. Sarah nodded. She admitted she almost didn't come on the show. I was afraid if I read the letter here, she said, I'd fall apart. Dr. Phil met her eyes. And if you do, then maybe, she said softly, I'll finally let myself heal. The envelope sat between them now, unopened, waiting. Dr. Phil took a breath. When you're ready, he said. We'll do this together. Sarah placed her fingers on the edge of the paper. They were shaking. She took one last look at the audience. This is the last thing he ever wrote to me, she said. As she slowly unfolded the letter, the room held its breath because everyone understood now. This wasn't just a letter. It was goodbye, love, forgiveness, and something no one was prepared to hear. Sarah's hands trembled as she slowly unfolded the letter. The sound of paper moving felt unnaturally loud in the silent studio. Dr. Phil didn't speak. The audience didn't move. Even the cameras seemed to hold their breath. Sarah cleared her throat once, twice. Then she began to read. My love, if you're reading this, it means I'm not there to say these words out loud, and that breaks my heart more than you'll ever know. Her voice cracked on the very first line. She paused, pressing the paper to her chest, as if trying to steady herself. Dr. Phil leaned forward slightly, his expression already changing. I want you to know something before anything else. Loving you was the greatest honor of my life. A quiet sob escaped from somewhere in the audience. Sarah wiped her eyes quickly, apologizing without words, then went on. I wasn't always good at saying how I felt. I thought showing up was enough. I hope it was. Her shoulders began to shake. Dr. Phil handed her a tissue, his own eyes glassy now. She took it, nodded gratefully, and kept reading. I'm sorry for the nights I came home tired and didn't ask how your day was. I'm sorry for the moments I chose silence instead of holding you. Sarah stopped. She whispered, You don't have to be sorry. The audience felt it, that unbearable moment when love and regret collide. She looked back down at the letter. If I ever made you feel alone, please forgive me. You deserved more softness than I sometimes gave. Tears rolled freely now. Dr. Phil lowered his head, pressing his fingers lightly against his lips. Sarah took a deep breath and continued. There's something I need you to understand. You were never weak. Not on the days you cried. Not on the days you doubted yourself. You carried us when I didn't even realize I needed carrying. The audience broke into quiet sobs. Sarah's voice became barely above a whisper. I didn't know he felt this way, she said, looking up at Dr. Phil. Dr. Phil shook his head gently. Most people don't, he replied softly. Until it's written. She went back to the letter. I worry about you being alone. But I also know this. You are stronger than you believe. You will survive this pain, even if it doesn't feel like it right now. Her hands shook so badly, she had to pause again. Agar aap nakabi kisi, apniko koyahai. Ya words apke dilko touch kara ha. Ek fu. Comment main drop karo. Aap akizeo. Nahaiho Sarah nodded slightly, as if feeling the support through the room. She continued, Please don't close your heart because of me. Love again, not to replace me, but to remind yourself that you're alive. That line hit like a wave. A woman in the front row covered her mouth. Someone else quietly whispered, Oh my God. Sarah's tears fell onto the paper now, smudging the ink. I don't know if I can do that, she said softly. Dr. Phil spoke for the first time in several minutes. You don't have to decide that today, he said. Just let yourself feel this. She nodded. Then she read the final lines of the page. If heaven exists, I'll be watching over you, not to haunt you, but to cheer you on. Lav fully laughed loudly. And when you miss me, just talk. I'll be listening. Sarah folded the letter halfway, unable to continue. She covered her face and cried, not quietly, not politely, but honestly. Dr. Phil stood and placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. The audience rose to their feet in silent respect. After a long moment, Sarah lowered the letter. There's more, she said through tears. But the next part. She looked at Dr. Phil. I don't know if I'm ready for what comes next. Dr. Phil met her gaze, his own eyes now wet. Whatever it is, he said gently, we'll face it together. The letter remained open, and everyone in that room understood. The hardest words were still waiting to be read. Sarah took a shaky breath, still holding the letter against her chest. The studio seemed suspended in time. Every eye was on her. Every heartbeat echoed in silence. She opened the letter again, carefully unfolding the next page. I know there were times I failed you. Her voice trembled. Times I let my fear get in the way of love. The words were simple, but the weight behind them was immense. She paused, glancing at Dr. Phil. He nodded silently, urging her to continue. I'm sorry for the nights I wasn't brave enough to say what I felt. She swallowed hard. I hope you can forgive me for the times I made you feel alone. Her voice cracked. The first sob escaped, quiet but undeniable. Dr. Phil reached out, offering her a tissue. She dabbed at her eyes, but her hands shook so badly it barely helped. The audience sat frozen. Some covered their mouths, others held hands with loved ones nearby. A few quietly wept. No one dared speak. It felt as if the letter itself had cast a spell over the room. Sarah took another deep breath and continued, her voice steadier now. I want you to know that every smile you gave me, every laugh we shared. She paused, a small, bittersweet smile forming through tears. Those moments kept me alive, even when I felt weak. You were my light in ways I didn't always say aloud. Dr. Phil's eyes glistened. He leaned slightly forward, listening intently, but making sure Sarah remained the center of attention. I worry about leaving you behind, she read, her voice barely audible. But I also know you are strong, stronger than I could ever express. I hope you never doubt yourself, even in the moments when life feels unbearable. The audience could feel the tension in the air, the raw honesty of someone who had prepared their final words, yet still loved fiercely. Remember the small things, Sarah whispered. The coffee on lazy mornings, the way we held hands in silence, the silly jokes only we understood. These were my treasures, my proof that life, love, and laughter are worth everything. She paused again, tears flowing freely. The studio fell completely silent. Dr. Phil's hand rested gently on hers, grounding her, offering comfort, without saying a word. I'm not afraid to leave, she read, because I know a part of me will always stay with you. Even when I am gone, I am there, cheering for you, hoping you find joy, courage, and peace in every step you take. Sarah's sobs grew louder. Her shoulders shook. She looked up at Dr. Phil. I didn't realize he felt this way, she said, voice cracking. All these years, I thought I was just living, but he was living for me, too. Dr. Phil nodded slowly, emotion in his eyes. That's the power of love, he said softly. It doesn't always speak in grand gestures. Sometimes, it whispers in the quietest moments. And sometimes it writes letters that change everything. Sarah wiped her face with a tissue, but her hands still shook. She continued to read, voice breaking on nearly every line. Forgive me for my shortcomings, she whispered, but know that my love never wavered. You are the bravest, kindest, most beautiful soul I have ever known. Live for yourself now, not because I'm gone, but because you deserve happiness in every form. The words sank in. The audience could feel the weight, the grief, the love intertwined so intricately in every sentence. Many silently held back tears while some openly wept. Sarah closed her eyes and took a deep breath. And if there are moments when the pain is too heavy, talk to me. I'll always be listening. You are never truly alone. Dr. Phil reached out, placing a hand on her shoulder, offering comfort without overshadowing her. For a moment, Sarah just sat there, absorbing every word, every feeling, every emotion her late husband had poured into this letter. The audience waited. There was no rush, no impatience, only the shared understanding of love, loss, and the human heart's extraordinary resilience. Finally, Sarah looked up, her voice barely above a whisper. He knew me better than I knew myself, she said, trembling. And even now, he's teaching me how to live again. A hush fell over the room. Dr. Phil nodded, tears brimming, giving her the space to feel every moment. The letter was halfway read, and yet already, the impact was undeniable. Everyone in the studio felt it, the rawness, the love, the grief, and the extraordinary courage to share it all in public. Sarah gently folded the letter back, Her hands were shaking, but her eyes reflected a new understanding, a fragile but growing strength. Dr. Phil leaned forward, voice soft but steady. "Sarah, whatever comes next, remember, you are not alone. Your husband's love. This letter. It's all proof that love never really leaves." And with that, the studio exhaled collectively, holding their hearts, knowing that the next part of the letter would go even deeper. The lines that would bring the ultimate revelation, the climax of emotion, and a moment that would leave Dr. Phil himself struggling to hold back tears. Sarah's hands still shook as she held the letter. She knew the next part contained the words her husband had saved for the very end, the words he wanted her to carry, even in his absence. The studio was completely silent. Every camera, every eye, every heart was tuned to her. Even Dr. Phil, seasoned at handling some of the heaviest human stories, leaned forward, his expression a mix of anticipation and compassion. Taking a deep breath, Sarah continued reading. "My love," her voice barely above a whisper, "if you are reading this, know that I am proud of you beyond what words can express. I am proud of your strength, your courage, your kindness, everything that makes you who you are." Her lips trembled and tears streamed freely down her cheeks. She paused for a moment, gathering herself before moving forward. "Do not waste a single day in sorrow. I hope you can find joy again, not to forget me, but to honor the love we share. Live boldly, laugh freely, and never doubt the beauty of your own heart." Sarah's voice cracked entirely on the next line. "And if you ever feel lost, scared, or alone, close your eyes and remember me. I am there, not to hold you back, but to give you the courage to keep moving forward. I love you now, and forever." A single sob escaped from the audience. Another viewer covered her mouth with her hands. Someone else whispered, "Oh my God." Dr. Phil's voice caught as he spoke softly. "Sarah, those are words that not only heal but also transform." Sarah wiped at her tears, her hands still trembling as she folded the letter gently. "I don't know what to say," she admitted, her voice breaking. "It's like, even now, he's teaching me how to keep going." The audience, many of them crying quietly, watched as she tried to steady herself. The weight of the letter's words had filled the room, yet it was not only grief, it was a profound reminder of love, resilience, and hope. "Do you realize," Dr. Phil said, his own voice thick with emotion, "that what he wrote here isn't just a goodbye, it's a roadmap for living after loss?" Sarah nodded, swallowing hard. "Yes, and it's terrifying, because it means I have to face life without him. But it's also comforting, because I know I'm not alone." Dr. Phil gently rested a hand on hers. "That's the paradox of love," he said. "It can hurt more than anything in the world, and yet it can carry you through the darkest moments." Sarah looked out at the audience. "He knew me better than I knew myself," she said softly. "Even in death, he's guiding me, helping me live again." A woman in the front row whispered, "That's beautiful." Someone else nodded, tears falling. "This is what love really is." Dr. Phil's voice shook slightly. "And this, ladies and gentlemen, is the power of a life fully lived and fully loved. He didn't just leave her. He left a piece of himself, his wisdom, and his heart in these words." Sarah closed the letter fully, pressing it to her chest. She breathed deeply, trying to regain composure. "It's more than I could have imagined. I thought it would hurt, and it does, but it also lifts me. He's giving me permission to move forward, to be happy again." The audience was on their feet not for applause, but for the courage and love they had just witnessed. Some were crying openly, some whispering words of comfort to neighbors, all united by the raw humanity of the moment. Dr. Phil turned toward the audience, emotion evident in his eyes. "Moments like this remind us that even in grief, there can be guidance, there can be hope, and there can be love that never truly leaves us." Sarah's husband wrote these words not only to comfort her, but to teach all of us about the endurance of the human heart. Sarah finally lowered the letter. "I feel like he's still here," she whispered, "not physically, but in every beat of my heart, in every step I take forward." Dr. Phil nodded, tears in his own eyes. "That's the gift he left you, and it's a gift to all of us who see the power of love, forgiveness, and resilience reflected in this story." The studio remained quiet, a shared reverence hanging over everyone present. The letter had done its work, not only for Sarah but for everyone watching, a reminder that love, when true, transcends even death. And as Sarah held the letter close, the audience understood fully. The hardest words had been read, yet they carried the most profound lessons. The line that changed everything had done its job. Sarah sat quietly, the letter pressed to her chest. The studio remained in hushed awe, the weight of the moment pressing on everyone's shoulders. Even Dr. Phil, known for his composure in confronting life's heaviest stories, found himself swallowed by the sheer depth of what he had just witnessed. He leaned forward in his chair, his voice catching slightly as he addressed Sarah. "Sarah, what you just shared is not just a widow reading a letter," he said softly, trying to steady himself. "It's a human heart speaking across the divide, a reminder of what love really means. And I'll be honest, I feel it too." The audience gasped quietly. For many, seeing Dr. Phil, a man so often stoic and in control, struggle to hold back tears made the moment even more real. It was a reminder that grief and love are universal, that even the strongest among us are touched by the rawness of the human experience. Sarah looked up, meeting his gaze. I didn't expect anyone to feel it this deeply," she whispered. "You think it's just you," Dr. Phil said, shaking his head. "But this letter, it's teaching all of us. It's teaching me." His voice trembled slightly. "It's reminding us that life is fragile, that the people we love may not always be here, and that we need to cherish every moment while we can." Tears glistened in Dr. Phil's eyes. He took a deep breath, trying to regain composure, but the emotion was too strong to hide completely. The audience was visibly moved. Many wiped away tears, and some simply stared, unable to process the depth of love, loss, and hope that hung in the room. Sarah reached out, her hand finding Dr. Phil's for a brief, comforting touch. "It's like he's still here," she said softly. "Even now, he's guiding me." Dr. Phil nodded, swallowing hard. "That's the power of a love that transcends even death. You can feel it, can't you? It's not just words on paper. It's a heartbeat, a presence, a guiding light." He paused, turning slightly toward the cameras. "If you've ever lost someone you love and felt their presence even after they were gone, type "stay strong" in the comments. Let the world know you're not alone in this moment." Dr. Phil turned back to Sarah, his own hands trembling slightly as he continued. "Most people think grief is just sorrow, but what we're seeing here is love, courage, and resilience. Your husband wrote this letter not to leave you behind, but to empower you, to remind you that even in the hardest moments, life is worth living fully." Sarah's tears fell freely now, but she also smiled faintly through them. "I feel it," she whispered. "I feel him, giving me strength." Dr. Phil's voice softened further, breaking slightly. "And that, Sarah, is the lesson we all need. Love doesn't end with death. It changes form. It becomes guidance. It becomes strength. It becomes strength. It becomes something that can move the living forward." The audience seemed to lean in closer. Some quietly sobbed. Others sat in reflective silence, absorbing the universality of the moment. The studio, normally filled with movement and noise, felt like a sacred space. Sarah looked around, voice small but firm. "Even though he's gone, I know he'll always be with me. In my heart, in my choices, in my courage." Dr. Phil nodded, emotion clear in his expression. "That is exactly what he wanted you to feel. And it's exactly what this moment teaches everyone here, and everyone watching at home. Love, when true, never really leaves us. It shapes us even from beyond." He took a breath, trying to steady himself. "Sarah, you're incredibly brave for sharing this, and the rest of us are better for witnessing it. For seeing how grief can coexist with hope, and how love can endure beyond the physical." Sarah exhaled slowly, finally lowering the letter. She wiped at her tears, hands still trembling, but her eyes shining with a fragile strength. Dr. Phil leaned closer, voice tender. "I want everyone here and at home to remember this moment, that even when life feels unbearable, even when someone we love is gone, their love can still guide us, still lift us, still teach us to be stronger, kinder, braver." He paused again, and the studio remained silent, hanging on every word. Sarah whispered softly, "It's like he's still telling me. To live fully, to not give up." Dr. Phil's voice cracked again. "And that is the ultimate gift. That's what makes love eternal. The audience rose to their feet, some applauding softly, some crying openly, but all deeply moved. It was a moment of shared humanity, raw, emotional, and profoundly inspiring. Dr. Phil looked at Sarah one last time. Thank you for letting us witness this. Thank you for letting us feel it with you. And thank you for showing us that the human heart, when touched by love, is capable of surviving, learning, and even thriving after unimaginable loss. And as Sarah sat quietly, holding the letter, everyone understood. The depth of grief had met the power of love, and the studio had witnessed a moment that would stay in their hearts forever. The studio slowly exhaled. The silence that had filled the room after Sarah finished reading the letter was replaced by a soft, reverent murmur. People wiped away tears, held hands, and looked at one another as if to say, "We all feel this together." Sarah folded the letter carefully, pressing it to her heart one last time. Her hands no longer shook as violently. The tears had dried, leaving only a faint glimmer of reflection in her eyes. She looked around the studio at the audience, at Dr. Phil, and allowed herself a small, bittersweet smile. Dr. Phil leaned forward, his voice steady but warm. "Sarah, you've given all of us a gift today. You've shared something incredibly personal, deeply painful, and profoundly moving. And by doing so, you're reminding everyone watching at home that grief and love can coexist, that loss does not mean the end of connection." The audience began to clap softly at first, then more confidently, rising to their feet to honor the courage it took for Sarah to share her story. The energy in the room was no longer heavy with sorrow, but alive with reverence, hope, and inspiration. Sarah spoke again, her voice quiet but confident. "I feel like I've been given permission to keep going, to live, to love, to find happiness again, not because I'm forgetting him, but because I'm carrying his love forward." Dr. Phil nodded, emotion glistening in his eyes. "That's exactly it. Healing doesn't mean forgetting. Healing means embracing the love that remains, letting it guide you, and using it to live fully." The moment was being recorded, and as the clip made its way online, millions of people were watching the unfolding story. Comments poured in from all corners of the globe, words of comfort, empathy, and solidarity. Viewers shared their own experiences of love, loss, and the courage to move forward, inspired by Sarah's vulnerability and the wisdom in her late husband's words. Stories like this, Dr. Phil continued, addressing both the studio and the millions watching at home, remind us of the power of the human heart. That love never truly ends, that even in the darkest moments connection and courage can light the way. Sarah took a deep breath and looked toward Dr. Phil. "I feel like he's still with me," she said softly. "In every choice I make, every moment I live, he's guiding me. And I want to honor that by living well." Dr. Phil reached over, gently touching her hand. "And that, Sarah, is exactly what he would want. You've transformed your grief into hope, and that's the most powerful thing any of us can do." As the audience slowly exited the studio, many wiping tears, others hugging loved ones tightly, the impact of the moment lingered. The story didn't end in that room. It lived on in millions of homes, shared across social media, discussed in quiet conversations, and carried in hearts touched by Sarah's courage. The letter had done more than comfort Sarah. It had inspired the world to remember the enduring power of love, the importance of expressing our feelings, and the resilience of the human spirit. If you believe that love transcends even loss, type "love never dies" in the comments. Share this story with someone who needs hope, and subscribe for more stories that remind us all of the power of the human heart. Sarah held the letter one last time, a symbol not of sorrow, but of healing. And as the lights dimmed in the studio, the audience, and millions online, carried away a simple truth: love doesn't end. It endures, guides, and inspires, even from beyond. And with that, the episode concluded, leaving hearts full, spirits lifted, and a world reminded that even in loss, there is hope, there is courage, and there is always love.